City won the Cup. Paul Lakey's with me. I'm Ian Cheeseman, XS Manchester, 106.1 FM. This is Forever Blue, and our City chat each and every week. And weeks don't get much better than this one, Lakey.
They do not, Ian. No, it was an absolutely incredible day from start to finish. You know, all the way in, down Wembley Way, all the songs, listen to all the Arsenal fans singing on the way in, not singing so much going out, but just the whole euphoria of the occasion, and to go to Wembley and to dominate it and to take it over as your own with a 3-0 performance, and with our stalwarts, our most experienced players coming, out of the woodwork to score goals. It was just, a perfect end to a wonderful day.
You were sat with your lad, we bumped into each other, and you were quite near the front there, and you were in a position where eventually, when they were doing all the celebrations on that stage on the pitch, you had the perfect view. Did you stay for all that, watch all of that stuff?
Oh, yeah, of course, you can't miss that. And, and again, it's just that respect and the fact that, the players have been through so much. Obviously, you go up on top, and it is kind of controlled by the powers that be. Certain music is being played, and, they kind of made the announcements too quickly and just got things wrong. So you just want to do it our way. And that's what happened. We came down, all the players were sort of walking around, chilling out, enjoying each other's company after the game. But most importantly, they were holding that trophy up for all the City fans to see, singing away, joining in, having the crack. It was just, that's your dream trip to Wembley, isn't it?
And actually the bit that feels very real is the bit where, those gold foil streamers that were shot up in the air. There was a bit where I think it was Bernardo Silva, but you wouldn't imagine it wouldn't be, Benjamin Mendy as well in there, who were throwing it all over each other and causing all sorts of issues and problems. You got a pretty good view of that as well, did you?
Everything, mate, everything. All the little, areas of the pitch where the players were mucking about or just hugging each other or having a laugh or just enjoying the whole moment, and being part of it together, and there was a genuine sort of, everyone felt part of it. Even Pep bringing on Phil Foden right towards the end. Then there was a corner, didn't bring him on for that. He was giving instructions the whole time. These are the expectations. This is what I want from you, with the ball, without the ball, certain positions. And it was just so professionally done. But then seeing Phil come onto the pitch just capped it off. And the fact that Sergio came off, and gave him a high five, it's like those are the experiences that you take to your grave. A stop forward and go out on the pitch at Wembley, 3-0 result. He was a kid, he was a ball boy supporting these players not so very long ago. I mean, talk about dreams coming true. For Phil Foden, it's just that, but he's earned the right.
Well, you talk about dreams coming true. You talk about, I don't know where I've disappeared to. I disappeared for a second there. I don't know where I disappeared to. But anyway, I'm back. You talk about dreams. Actually, Vincent Kompany, probably not only did he fulfil a personal dream, but I think a lot of fans, and I include me in this, sitting there watching from the stands, it was even more emotional and even more meant a lot more because Vincent Kompany played in the game, scored a goal in the game, made a great tackle on Aubameyang, showed great strength, for example, and it felt as if it sounds so corny and cliched and cheesy to say it, but he feels like one of us out there, like you did when you were playing. He felt like one of us. Did you relate to that?
Oh, 100%, I got emotional, seeing Vinny's response to that. I mean, you can forget all your dabs and all your dancing, all your different little things that everyone does these days. That was just raw emotion from that's how much it meant. And that what it meant to Vincent Kompany is what it means to all of us. And when he scored that goal, the whole place just lit up, didn't it? And that you can't fabricate that. It's not contrived. That's exactly his emotion coming out. Not just because he scored a goal, at Wembley in the final, but because of all that he's been through as well. And every former player, every fan recognised that moment. And it's something that he will look back in a long, long time from now. I'm sure he'll be the president of some country or, he'll be the king of Belgium or whatever he'll be, because he'll be successful in whatever he does. But at the same time, you knew how much that meant to him. And I've got to say, I had a lump in my throat, and so many fans did. And it's just a special, special way that he celebrated, just lifted everybody. And like you said, Ian, he was dominant. He was a leader. He was precise. He passed good information on. He won the tackles that he had to win. He won the headers that he had to win. And to cap it all, he showed a great bit of skill as a winger on the right-hand side. He won the corner, got the ovation from the fans singing his name, and straight from that, a wonderful worked corner between De Bruyne and Gundogan, straight across the box there. And who was most alive to it? Vinny. And the end result was a great goal, 2-0. And by that time, even though 3 is saying it's game over, at 2-0, it was game over, wasn't it?
That underarm fist-clenched salute in the air was very reminiscent of the goal he scored against United at the Etihad just before City won the league in 2012, wasn't it? I mean, it just looked like this. In fact, if it hadn't been for the colour of his shorts, you would have thought it was the same picture, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly, mate, exactly that. And that's what everyone can relate to, because, you know, it's those moments that don't happen that often, but when they do, you just know how much it means, and the emotions that were involved. I mean, Vinny was superb, but as we know, mate, there was so many stellar performances on the day. Okay, be it the second half was a lot stronger than the first half, but even so, you know, Arsenal tried to sort of split the pitch in half, and that's how they set up. But so what do we do? As soon as we get a goal kick, what does Claudio Bravo do? He picks out Sergio. A great bit of ingenuity. And if you're an Arsenal fan, you're absolutely furious, because I tell you what, there's no way Vinny Kompany or Nicolas Otamendi or any of the United centre-backs would have allowed that to happen. That centre-forward would have been smashed and it would have been cleared out. That would never have happened. So this shows you, you know, what they were about on the day. But a great bit of invention, great bit of quick thinking. Sergio, and when he's got the ball out of his feet, to do that, the skill it takes to get the ball out of your feet such that it is planted and bounces just in time for you to lift it with enough distance to get it over the goalkeeper and into the back of the net. He made it look so simple, but that finish was so technical and so skillful, you know, and needs the plaudits that it actually got, because it was second to none. But our whole play second half was just a different gear. We went from second gear was enough to contain Arsenal. Third gear went beyond them, and then fourth gear, at moments, fourth gear was just absolutely demolished them. And all across the pitch, left side, right side, across the central areas, even when Fernandinho said he had to go off, you still managed it comfortably. And you've got to say, if you're an Arsenal fan, you've got to be embarrassed by that second half performance.
Obviously, they got slated, Arsenal. We weren't watching it on TV, but I believe that Gary Neville, for one, was very, very critical. How much of the win was down to City being great, and did he have a point, or was that just over the top that Neville and others might have been giving the stick towards Arsenal? Because obviously Wenger has had so much stick in recent years that he's almost fair game, isn't he? He
is fair game. And the thing is, you can label everything at Wenger, but you talk about experienced players, international players that were basically walking on the pitch and were strolling around. There was no real urgency. You know, and the fact that it's a cup final, you know, and you wear your heart on your sleeve in those moments and you give it your absolute all to try and make something happen. And they were just going through the motions in the second half. When it went to 2-0 and 3-0, they were almost embarrassed to be out on the pitch. So you can obviously label Arsenal as being, you know, a disgrace for that second half. Some players, not every player, but certain players, you know, and again, you know, losing their discipline and going missing as well. I mean, Mesut Ozil, everyone talks about what a great player he is, and he is a great player. But it's those moments where your best players need to find something, need to create something. That'll be Kevin De Bruyne, it'll be, you know, Leroy Sané, you know, that invention, that creativity. But that just didn't happen for them in the second half. But also, I equate it to the Liverpool game where we were beaten, and it was our mistakes, but it was their pressure and their relentlessness which created the mistakes in the first place. You know, so fair play. You know, they were committed and they were combative and they made us make mistakes, and they deserved probably to nick it 3-2. But the flip side to that is, you go to a cup final and you have that kind of performance in the second half, it's a lot of it was down to how they applied themselves. But let's not take it away from City. We were excellent second half. We just turned it on because Pep's made it clear to the players that wasn't acceptable, even though we were more than good enough to be in the game and we were 1-0, you know, up at that time. It was still Pep's team talk. The players knew that wasn't where they've been at all season. Stepped it up, third gear, fourth gear, and the game was done by 65 minutes. I'm
going to talk a lot more about Vincent Kompany later on, because we've got Andy Morrison coming up later on, and Nedum Manuro bumped into as well at the weekend, who, I must admit, there was a lot of love for Nedum when he appeared in the vlog that I do. Sort of, wow, isn't he well-spoken? We know he's got a great voice.
Yeah.
And that he could have a media career, so we're going to bring him back into the media tonight.
Excellent.
But you were singling out, when we were speaking over a cup of tea before, David Silva. He scored a goal, and he scored a great goal, actually. actually. And some of the criticism in the past has been that he's got everything except the finish. And if he'd had the finish like that week in, week out, he might not have been at City, he might have been at Real Madrid or Barcelona or whatever, which we're so grateful that he didn't go there. But that was him at his best, wasn't it, at the weekend?
Yeah, it was. And that's what he gives you. I mean, he's such an intelligent footballer, Ian, and I don't just mean about his first touch, because that first touch, and he uses his hips, he uses his body the best that he can. So the angles that he creates with his own body means that you just can't take the ball off of him. So that's down to, clever football, but at the same time, it's effortless. And the fact that he can find space where other players just don't seem to be able to. So he doesn't just drift between the lines. He makes, he'll chop and change his movement to left side, to right side. He'll up his body out to different angles. He'll get the ball, he'll give it back. But all the time, he's 3 or 4 steps ahead. He's got those patterns of play which he has created. So with Leroy Sané, and again, Leroy was incredible. And if he gets tightly marked, someone's in his face, the ingenuity of Kevin De Bruyne and in particular David Silva on the left-hand side will mean that it doesn't make a difference, because he'll just put them in time and time again. But David Silva this season is working even harder. He's stronger. Is a pass completion rate, and I mean effective passes, not just 5-yard passes in. I mean talking quality passes that create chances time and time again has gone up and up and up. And the fact that he's recognised as a world-class footballer, and yet it's almost whispered, and it should be shouted from the rooftops, because we have had at Manchester City one of the best players to play in the Premier League ever, alongside Yaya Toure in his pomp. Talking about a world-class footballer who we've been so, grateful to have him wearing a sky blue shirt, and he has gone from strength to strength, and he couldn't believe that it could get any better. He's always been my favourite player, but he has got better this season. And I think at the end of it, whether he's in the Premier League team or not, whether there's a sky blue shirt in there or not, there should be. But even if they're not, City fans, and more importantly, for me, professional footballers, current and ex-players, would say, who has been the best number 10 in the Premier League over the past 5 seasons? And I tell you what, they will all come up with the same name, David Silva.
Has to be. I mean, before the game, a lot was made about whether Bravo would play, and the manager had said he would, and he came out with this phrase on the previous Friday, saying that sometimes the importance of what goes on in the dressing room and sort of team spirit was what he was getting at, is more, he actually said, more important than winning a trophy. Now, that would have pricked a few ears up, and obviously if City had have lost the game, that would have come back to haunt him slightly. But do you think that actually, in the end, he's been proven right? Because obviously, it's not just about the way that they play, which is a good example of what team spirit's all about. It's also the celebrations. It's also the way they relate these days to each other on social media, etc. And the team spirit, it to me, feels completely unquestioning. And given that across the road we can see seem to be able to see little rifts at the moment in their team spirit, that is one of the differences in it, the team spirit. So was that a masterstroke by Pep?
I think Pep's always approached it that way, Ian, to be honest. And that inclusivity that he has with all of his squad, is paramount to the success of any team, is that everyone feels a part of it all the time. Now, we know that, so for instance, many, many moons ago, when Manchester United were in their pomp and Peter Schmeichel was at his best, Tony Colton was his number 2. And if there'd been a few more trophies that they'd been involved in, chances are TC would have been playing, because that was similar there. But in terms of how City are now, every player is made to feel a part, and that inclusion, that respect for each other, means that every single training session is important. And as Vinny Kompany said after the game, did he expect to start? No, he didn't. But if he did get the chance, he was going to take it, and he was going to do his job, and he was going to work hard for the team. That team is the whole squad. And that's how Pep talks about everyone as being part of the team. And people were saying, you've got to play Edison, you've got to play this player, you've got to play that player. But actually, if you think about it, that would impact not just on his relationship with Claudio Brava, if Edison was to have played just in a final, but the whole back four and the whole squad, and that trust that Pep has built, would have been undermined in one fell swoop. And often from there, that's when the cracks start to appear. Pep knows that, he realises that, and that's the reason why he's not only the most intelligent and exciting coach in world football today, he's also a very good person. And when you're a good person and you're self-aware, you realise that keeping everybody happy means treating everybody the same, and he does just that.
I know it was a slightly different story in 2013 when Joe Hart played in that FA Cup final and Costel Pantilimon had been the player who was going to play in goal, had been put up to the press, and then it all changed. I think that was probably slightly the other way around in that I think there was a bit of player pressure actually on Mancini and the cracks were already beginning to show. But you're right. I mean, when that whole thing goes wrong, it's a worrying sign, isn't it? And there's nothing like that at the moment going wrong at all. I mean, obviously, I'm going to talk, to Nedum and to Andy about Vinny Kompany. But one thing I remember from last week when we were chatting, we had Rodney Marsh joined us, and we were talking about who would you go with as the back four. And if I remember rightly, certainly us three agreed that Vinny Kompany and Otamendi were going to be our choice.
Yeah.
Do you now look at the game on Thursday at Arsenal and think, this is how I feel, Vinny Kompany's not going to be playing that game. He's out. He's out of that game. Not because of anything he's done wrong, because he was brilliant. But there's a game against Chelsea on the Sunday, and we know where Vinny is with his injuries, etc. So even though he may have reported after the game and he's feeling fine, you don't risk him in that game. You play him Chelsea. Is that the way you see it?
I do, yeah, exactly that. I mean, I can see John Stones coming in. I think he matched it with Nick Otamendi, but there again, when you've got Laporte in the team as well, and again, a quality footballer who's only going to get better, then you have got some fantastic options. But I think, common sense in that situation, Vinny will be spent, as fit as the guy is. He gave absolutely everything for the whole game, and I think it's credit to the fact that he knows how Pep works now, and also his humility that he wouldn't expect to be in, and the fact that because of how Pep galvanises the squad by that inclusion, that John Stones will have been told, you're going to be playing on Thursday, the same with Laporte, so everyone's fresh, everyone's together, and that's it now, Ian, because when you get towards the end of the season now, everyone becomes fit, God willing now, Mendy will be back in the squad very, very soon, so you light up the place with his personality and his qualities, and then, Gabriel Jesus, who came on as well, which we didn't really get to talk about. Again, it's great to see him back on the football pitch, so we're getting everyone fit at the right time, but Pep will use that common sense approach now, like you say, in spot on. I think he'll change the centre-backs. I think he'll bring in one or two more players and change it, but keep it fresh, but still there'll be the same attitude, and it will be relentless. They will go to the Emirates, should I say, on Thursday to win that game.
Old times, eh?
The old timer, yeah.
City's record, I don't want to be a doom merchant here, but it's about time this changed anyway. City's record at Arsenal, let's put it that way, certainly in the 40 years I've been watching football, is the worst venue, if you count Highbury and the Emirates, that City go to. Mm-hmm. And people made a big deal out of saying it was like that at Anfield before City played Liverpool, and we saw what happened in the end. They lost the game. Mm-hmm. And given that Arsenal too will be extra motivated after all the criticism of losing the cup final, I must admit I'm a little bit anxious about Thursday.
Well, it's going to be a different entity altogether, isn't it? Because, like you said, they'll be licking their wounds. They've got a point to prove. They've got a pride to play for. Is it going to be a full stadium or not? Are the fans going to basically protest by not turning up that enough is enough? But there's one or two players there that are asking questions of themselves. And don't forget, we're in a rich vein of form. We're playing so well, and we're going to go for the jugular from the outset. So even though it's going to be a tighter game, I still think we'll have too much for them and we'll turn them over.
Fingers crossed. The optimist, Mr. Paul Lake. I'm Ian Cheeseman. This is XS Manchester. This is Forever Blue. This is XS Manchester 2. It's 106.1 FM. Tell your mates, tell your friends, tell those people who... And the number of people that still come up to me and go, where are you? Why are you not still on the radio, Ian Cheeseman? And I go, I am. I'm on XS Manchester 106.1 FM. You can even download the free app if you've got a smartphone, which most people have these days. And you can listen live on the phone. So if you have a problem like... I was at Chester Branch and Crewe Branch recently, and they said, we can't get it. And I said, yes, you can. You can download the podcast, all that sort of stuff. So they're missing out, Lakey, aren't they?
They're missing out, especially with your dulcet tones, pal.
Well, the guests that I have, I mean, people like you. We've got Andy Morrison later on. We've got Nedum in just a second. He was at Wembley on Saturday, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I must admit that he's one of those people, I don't know if you ever shook his hand, but he tends to crush your fingers unceremoniously. So I'm always a little bit right. I'd rather give him a high five, you know what I mean, when I see him.
Just give him a fist pump, that's how you do.
A fist pump?
Yeah, that'd be easy, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose
just
so.
Just not on the chin, that's all, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the other thing is I could do one of those, you know, those gestures that people do. I don't even know what they're called, really, but I'm not into all that stuff.
No, I wouldn't go there if I were you, mate.
A cheeky hello is all I can get away with. But we've got a couple of technical difficulties on getting Nedum up just at the moment. So let's go back to Vincent Kompany, who I'm going to ask Andy as well about leadership. He was a great skipper, of course, at City. As you were, of course. You had a spell as captain as well, didn't you?
Very brief, yeah.
Yeah, but you nevertheless had a go. There's a special skill set that is required for a captain. I don't think a captain's role, like cricket, it's all about tactics, really, isn't it? It's not like that in football. It's the manager who gets the message out there. It's more to do with leading the team, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's also around body language, you know, clear communication, that consistency, you know, start as you mean to go on by leading by example. And even if you make a mistake, so what, you know, it's about encouragement, it's about organisation. If someone needs to be told, you'll tell them, but also be prepared to listen. And one of the, for me, and a really important part of good leadership is having active listening skills. You know, someone can speak to you maybe in front of the other teammates or to one side, but do it in the right way, not to embarrass somebody, but to always try and encourage. He's got that intelligence, he's got that steel, he's got that integrity, and he's got the quality to back it up as well, Vinny.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what Mr. Nedum Anuha says about it all. So you're down there at Wembley. You enjoyed that, Nedum, on Sunday, didn't you?
Yeah, most certainly did, yeah. I was initially just trying to be neutral on the radio, but as every goal was going in, I started to become more and more blue, so it ended up being quite a good day for me.
You were very eloquent. I recorded an interview with you, and which a lot of City fans have seen, and there was a lot of love out there, I've got to say, for you, Nedum, especially because they know you're a real blue, and they know you're a very humble person as well. I know you're down south these days, but do you get that love from the City fans?
Yeah, when I do see them, I do, to be honest, yeah. And it's nice being around them. It's nice being around people from the north. Obviously, I'm based down here, but when before I started on Sunday, I was in a hotel and I was surrounded by City fans and like true Manx, and it felt like I was at home, if you know what I mean. I'll always remember that, and you know, something that I'll never fail to forget about in a second.
Well, obviously you enjoyed it. You were, as you explained at the weekend, you grew up in Miles Platting, and I asked you about Phil Foden at the time, and being local is something that matters to City fans a great deal. I mean, I know there's a lot of love out there for people like David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne and Vincent Kompany, who are not even from this country, but nevertheless, if you're a local lad who comes through, there does seem to always be a little bit of something extra, doesn't there?
Yeah, most definitely. I think when I was first coming through, that's the way that the club used to work. It used to be almost like a conveyor belt of players coming through the academy, of which most of them were from the city. But you know, as more success came, you know, that kind of slowed down a bit. But it looks as if we could be going back to what it was, except the type of player coming from the city now are exceptional talents. And with all respect to people like Vinny, David, and so on. You know, they might not be from the city, but they've taken the city on board and they've made it their own. So I think that's another reason why they're loved so much by the fans.
Me and Paul Lake have been talking about Vincent Kompany, and I'm in the middle of writing a column which will be in the Manchester Evening News this week, and I've chosen Vincent as the subject of it. And I've said that he's something very different than your typical footballer. Now, you know, you and Lakey are footballers, or were footballers, and you have both been two players who I believe are much loved by City fans. But I don't think Vincent Kompany it's unreasonable to say that he's right up there with any player that's ever played for the club. What do you think makes him special? Is it just about being a player? Is it something else than that?
No, I think from the time I spent with him, like I'm pretty good friends with him now, and we speak quite often. I think it's the type of person that he is. So on the field, he's relentless, he's aggressive. Like I remember when he first properly started playing centre-back for City, there's like a year, 2 years where every time there was a derby game, he'd like follow Rooney around like he wasn't allowed to give him a yard, you know what I mean? He was just so relentless with it. But then off the field, he wants everyone to try as hard as he's trying and expects a certain standard. You know, if you drop him below that, he will let you know, not in an embarrassing way like Paul was saying before. but he just encourages people to try and be the best that they can be. And because of his ability to speak many languages, he's always been very welcoming to anyone that comes into the dressing room. Instead of perhaps someone coming in and then you having a few eyes and I'm thinking, well, we don't know if we trust him yet, and so on and so forth. He gives people the platform to try and be what they can be, because chances are, if you turn up at Man City, as you have done in the past few years, chances are you're a good player. So you get the opportunity to show that.
He has a father who is quite political minded. He's got a degree in business studies. He's married a Mancunian City fan. I mean, he ticks every single box that, in terms of intelligence and connecting to this city. Because I can imagine he's going to be one of those players who, once his career's over, even though his home country is clearly Belgium, who will stay in this area and stay part of the City family, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. Believe it or not, here's a little thing for you. I actually introduced him to his wife. I was friends with her, and I remember I went to myself and another friend of mine. We actually went to Hamburg when he was playing there, and we went because the guy that I went with was good friends with him. So that's when I first met him, and that was maybe March time. Then we played against him in July, and I think he might have signed in August. But at that point, we were already connected, and before you know it, he's got my friend for his wife. How about
Cupid,
that?
Cupid.
Yeah. Well, I'll try my best, I'll try my best.
So you've seen him come from the very beginning to where he's got to. Did you imagine, as a friend, as a teammate, as a City fan, that he would excel to... I mean, if City win the Premier League this year, he gets to lift his third Premier League trophy. The manager's already said that it will be him that does it. I mean, that is, certainly for City, completely unprecedented, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is, yeah. I think the way he's been able to come into the side and fit in with every manager that's been here, and, really adapt and, show his strength, but then show his ability to just get the best out of himself year in, year out. Obviously, he's had a few injury worries and things like that. But sorry, yeah, it's just so impressive. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you think where City were when he first came. I think we did have a bit of money, but the plan was to try and finish top 6, top 8, and now the beliefs are like, can we or can they win the Champions League? They want to win the league, they want to win the Champions League. And that's so far away from where it first started, but he's still just as good now as he was then when that was the requirement. And I think it says so much to him. It's incredible, really.
I don't know what you're planning to do when you finally hang up your boots, Nedum, but I look at Vincent and I think he's got to be a manager, hasn't he?
It's funny you should say that. We've over the past couple of years, because we aren't exactly getting any younger, we have spoken about what to do after we retire and stuff like this, and he's got a few ideas. I've got a few ideas. They're kind of a million miles apart at the minute, but I think one of us will be very keen to stay within football, but that guy currently isn't that close to Manchester at the minute, so I'll just leave that one there for you to
you want to be a manager, do you, Nedum?
No, absolutely not. No, I'd want to be as far away from that as possible.
Oh, right.
Far away from it as possible, yeah. But he's got ideas. I think he would like to stay in football. I'm not sure if it's necessarily management, but as you've seen, like off the field and stuff, he certainly has things to offer.
He's got so much to offer.
Yeah, if worse comes to worse, he'll just be spokesman and just talk people to death before games. So, that's fair enough, isn't it?
Well, he'd be good at that. I mean, there's no doubt. And obviously, I've interviewed him on loads of occasions, not so much recently, but in the past. And he's just a terrific orator. And a bit like there's certain people that you come across. Kevin Keegan's one, for example, that springs to mind, who has that charisma that you want to listen to somebody. And when Vincent Kompany speaks, not only does he have that charisma and that personality and that leadership, which is obviously a key part of it, but he also, because he's so intelligent, far more intelligent, by the way, than me. I accept that straight away. I hang on to every word that he says because you know that there's a lot of thought going into it. It's not just speaking for word's sake. He actually thinks about what he's saying.
Yeah, definitely. And, as every year passes now, he's got stuff to back it up as well. Whereas in the past you could have said he's intelligent, he's talking about football. But what's he got to back it? Well, if he gets his third Premier League title, then, that kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? It's incredible, really. And just, as I say, just to see how well he's done, how well the football club has done in that time, from a distance, it truly is great to see. And I was lucky enough to see him when he was walking up the steps as well. And he still remembered me from when I think his first game at centre back for City was against Wigan, I think it was, many years ago. And he was actually playing midfield at the time, but then he had to drop back in because someone had been sent off. And he said, "Oh, thank you." That game, he said, "Thank you very much for helping me settle in that position for the club." And even though that was that long ago, and he's doing what he's doing, I'm doing what I'm doing, he still remembers those times, and he's a good friend of mine.
That's interesting, because when he came from Hamburg, as you say, he was a midfield player, and,
right, yeah.
I'm sure I read some quotes when people were talking about him being one of the best centre-halves in Europe, and supposedly Real Madrid were interested in him, and him saying he still harboured ambitions to go back into midfield. It never happened, and obviously he's been such an outstanding centre-half. It's hard to imagine that he would do, but the game's changing. I suppose you can see why he would have also been an excellent midfielder, particularly defensive midfielder.
Yeah, definitely. When I first saw him play, he was actually playing for Hamburg, and he had the number 10 on his back, believe it or not. And he was almost he was an attacking midfielder. My mind was blown, because now you look at him and you think he did a step over on Sunday, and like the whole world rocked, because like, oh my God, Vincent Kompany's done a step over. But back then, that's just what he used to do. It just seemed incredible.
What do you think, Lake? I mean, you're listening to what Nedum's saying here. He's very eloquent, old Nedum, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, Nedum, I was going to ask you the question, if you don't mind, though. In terms of Vincent's approach to the game, and the fact that you mentioned that he's played in midfield, for a considerable time for Hamburg before he came to City, do you think that ability to be able to play in those positions has given him that more rounded approach to to his knowledge of the game, especially in the changing room, as a leader, as a captain? I think that those combined experiences really truly help with leadership.
I believe so, yeah. And he's played for some big clubs, played in some big teams, and played in some very big matches as well. And he's not the type of player who, he doesn't really think about what's going on. He thinks about what's going on, so he can take that forward with him. So that experience of winning at Wembley, something that he's probably experienced before, playing on the big stage, where some people can just get lost in the moment. He takes everything in, and he's the type of person who doesn't make the same mistake twice, which is, that's a real gift. I remember this is something we used to get taught in the academy, to say, if they give you some information once and it sticks, then chances are you'll make a career of yourself towards the top end of like the football pyramid. If you get given the information and you make the same mistake over and over and over, so that basically will show that you'll fall further and further down the ladder. There's a lot to be said for people that understand their roles, understand their jobs, and that's what they're the ones who make, especially at centre back. Yeah. You made the fewest mistakes, and chances are you'll be something special.
Exactly, and Nedum as well. You talk about how Vincent's become a good friend of yours, and how you come across as being so genuine. I always remember when Vincent spoke after winning the league the very first time, and he said, "Forget all the money." He said, I've dreamt of this moment. Our footballers dream of this moment. It's not about the money. It's about winning a trophy over a hard-fought season, with your teammates together, and being able to hold that trophy up, on behalf of the fans. And that connection that you get is unprecedented. I mean, you hear that in every conversation that Vincent ever has, is that genuine, ability to be relaxed and to be himself.
Yeah, he's from certain aspects like that, he's as real as it gets. Him saying that isn't something to try and get the media to back him or anything like that. That's how he feels. He's got a lot of opinions which other people might disagree with throughout the years. I've heard loads of them, but at his very core, he's a winner. He wants to be in a side and a team that's pushing in the right direction to kind of win the right way. He's not going to be a cheat or anything like that. He wants to just do things the right way, be the best team, be the most successful team they can be, and just be the best player that he can be, and that's why so many people love him.
I'm talking to two players here, Lakey obviously and you, who've had injuries, and I know that can psychologically, physically, everything have a big effect on you. Vincent has gone and is going sort of through this. I know he's not injured right now. You two probably know this far better than me, really. But how has he coped with it? Has he given you any insight into? Because it must have been very tempting for him to sort of give up, really. I mean, all the cynical people might say, well, he's earning a load of money or whatever. But given what we're talking about in his personality, that is some drive to keep coming back time and time again, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. You know, within football, no one's, as players, we're not talking about money. It seems like the money gets spoken about from the outside. If anything ever goes wrong, someone say, well, you know, you're getting paid this amount of money to do this. But what Vincent wants to do, what I want to do, what the majority of players want to do, you want to be out there doing what you love and what, you're a professional at something which most people can only dream of. So whether or not you're getting paid or so on, everyone just wants to play. Everyone wants to be healthy. And I think that's been a big driving force for him, because he's obviously had some very tough times over the past 2-3 years. But he loves the game so much that he's willing to go through the mill to try and get himself back to wherever he needs to be. I think some people, the ones who perhaps are just obsessed with money or this, that, or whatever, they don't really love the game. They don't love the sport. They don't love being out on the field. So they'll just shirk away from it, possibly. Unless it's a very serious injury, they might just decide to retire, because rehab is so difficult. Rehab's like 10 pre-seasons back-to-back, and, defenders, we tend to hate pre-season. But, yeah, someone like Vincent, it's not a problem, because he knows at the end of it, he gets a chance to do what he loves doing. And he's still more than capable enough to do that job and to do a great job. People were asking a few questions on Sunday saying, oh, is he playing? Vincent's playing, and so on and so forth. And then in the biggest game of the season so far, he puts on a masterclass. That's him. He could have been thinking about it, that moment in the gym 6 months ago when he was struggling with his calf or whatever. But then there he is when the time comes. He's always there.
And he's got a mate like you, which can't be bad. Nedum, thanks very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Can I just say one thing before I go?
Yeah.
This is the dark side of Vincent as well, which I love him for. This really inspired me one time. So a few years ago, we were playing against Inter Milan in a pre-season game. It was under Roberto Mancini, and this is when Samuel Eto'o was playing for Inter. So he had the connections with Yaya Toure, Kolo Toure, and so on and so forth. And Vincent was kicking Samuel Eto'o. Eto'o was getting really offended. So at half-time, he went into Kolo and Yaya and said, "Can you tell this guy to stop kicking me?" And Vincent said, "Listen, every time you complain, I'm going to kick you again." And that's with Yaya and Kolo as senior players. And Vincent said that. Second half, he kicked him every single time he opened his mouth. And I looked at that and I went, do you know what? I've got a lot of time for this guy. An awful lot of time for him.
Love it.
Great story. Thanks very much, Nedum. Really, I look forward to the next time we speak. It can't come too soon. Thank you.
Most definitely. Take care, yourself.
Nedum Manua. Hey, what a treat. What a 20 minutes or so that was.
That's radio gold, that is,
that
mate.
was. I love that. He needs to come here and present, and I'll just take a step.
He needs to get on Sky and get on BT Sport.
He does. Absolutely does. Right, anyway, you know what? We've still got another City legend to come, yeah? Andy Morrison, right after this. Winning with Manchester City, XS Manchester 106.1 FM. This is Forever Blue. I'm Ian Cheeseman. This is Paul Lake next to me, former City player, of course. And we're going to now be joined by another City legend, former skipper as well, Andy Morrison. Just tell me how much the events of Sunday you enjoyed. I said that the wrong way around, but that were you there, by the way, or were you working?
Evening, Ian. Evening, Paul. I watched on the television at home. I've found it easier to take the game in. It's just such a long day. My son went, but not for me. I'd rather watch it at home in the home comforts, and it was a fantastic day. It was, we never envisaged it would be, a stroll like it was. I think once they'd missed that early opportunity, I thought we run the show.
Of course, it's been by a lot of City fans labelled Vincent Kompany's day because he scored the goal, and his leadership and his will to win, and obviously all the injury problems he's had. You were a great City skipper when the Blues were at one of their lowest points and needed somebody like you to be there and drive people on. But Vincent, in a different way, at a different level, is just as vital, isn't he? What do you admire him as a captain?
I've got really a lot to admire about him. I've been fortunate enough to be in his company on a pardon the company, but he's. I've been with him on a few occasions, and he's an outstanding individual. He really is. He's so impressive. He's very humble. and he's got a real passion for the football club. Every time I speak to him, he speaks so fondly of, what the club has given him as much as what he's given the club. For somebody that got injured like I did and finished, and Paul will be the same, it's so difficult to keep coming back from injuries, and for him to show the performance that he did after the catalogue of injuries was just remarkable. It was like, we know what a good defender he is, we know what a leader he is, but he was just a colossal on the day. As good a performance as I've seen from him in years. He was just brilliant.
Yeah, Andy, Ian, mate. Yeah, I was going to. We've spoken about Vincent. I also wanted to bring into the conversation what your thoughts on Fernandinho. And obviously this season, I know that Sean Goater waxed lyrical about him, saying he was probably our most important player this season. But now that he's had this niggle, how do you see the team managing without him?
Well, only time will tell on that. I think Ian will echo just, how highly I rate Fernandinho, and I've done for many, many years. For me, he's the best, alongside Kante in the world at what they do with the screening, and nobody can anticipate danger the way he does. So it's going to be a loss for us, but again, it gives another opportunity, and you're not going to be putting in average players. If we go with Gundogan and Silva and De Bruyne, then that's as good as anything around. So I think there's enough quality. I think there's enough momentum, and the team are in a really good place at the moment. So I think we can cover up for losing them. Although he is a massive loss, and I hope it's not. I hope it's just a couple of weeks, and he's back for the big European games.
Exactly, mate. I totally agree, and also the kind of. We've spoken about the balance in our team and the fact that we have got like-for-like opportunities with everyone being fully fit. But I always think about our left-hand side of how much stronger we are these days when Leroy Sané is out there. How much does he impress you as a young man?
Yeah, I spoke about him the last time I was on, and his ability to actually stretch the opposition and push them back, and by pushing defenders back deeper, he creates that space for David Silva to be able to find them little pockets in between the full-back and the centre-half, and then you get them little thready passes. I just find sometimes with Bernardo Silva and then Sterling on the other side, they don't quite stretch them the way people are petrified of his pace. They know if they go and get really tight to him and we get our heads up and balls are slipped down the side, you can't get back. He's that quick. So full-backs are always a bit deeper, and then it just creates little spaces for Silva. And if he can get on the half turn, he's a magician, and he's been so impressive for a young man, Sané, and he's been the outstanding wide man this year for me in the Premier League.
I don't know if you two have ever been in this situation where you've played the same team in two successive matches. As a spectator looking on the outside, as a fan, I always think when you play the same team twice within the space of 2 or 3 days, it's highly unusual and very difficult. City did it with Swansea. I think it was the season before last where they played them in the League and Cup, both at Swansea in a week, and they won both games. But that's fairly rare. Does that make Thursday's game at Arsenal more difficult, ironically, despite the emphatic win at the weekend?
Well, I don't think it's ideal, but I think it's going to be a lot tougher for Arsenal to actually pick themselves up after that performance, and then go into that game with any kind of enthusiasm or energy for it. City should be right on the front foot. It's going to be a fabulous playing surface, which is going to suit us. And what can they actually do, Arsenal, to change it around, to actually go and cause us a different kind of problem? I don't think they have the personnel to do it. So, it's going to be a lot more tougher evening for them than it will be for City.
Whereas City are likely to make changes, aren't they? Paul and I have already said that we think Vincent might not play. Gabriel Jesus could get a start, for example. Raheem Sterling's likely to come back. So there will be a different balance to the City side, won't there?
Yeah, it's fortunately, we've got that quality and depth of squad that, you've got replacements. If Laporte comes in, as John Stones, we've got loads of options, and and the quality that will be coming in, I don't think hinders the team in any way. So there's a lot. It's a real positive period, and I just think the energy and the momentum that the club have got. I just see the Arsenal game as just another game that I think will have too much for them.
Andy, always a pleasure to speak to you. We'll catch up again soon. Thanks very much, mate.
Top man, Ian. Thanks, pal.
Cheers, Andy.
All the best. See you.
Andy Morrison. So we've had the great Paul Lake, the fantastically eloquent Nedum. We've had Andy Morrison. I've chipped in a bit. Tell people about the podcast download. I'll tweet it out very soon. See you next week.